welcome back to Visual Music, the music podcast where we talk about tracks that we found on Bandcamp, SoundCloud, and that were sent in by listeners just like you. As always, I'm Ryan.
And I am Craig.
And we got a lot of tracks here for you today. We got 8 tracks that I absolutely will butcher the names for. I'm looking at the list now and I'm like, I will mess up almost all of these. So apologies right away for all of those folks that I will not say your band's name correctly. Just like our very first, we had a submission in one of our previous shows. Our very first submission, we were big on the track. It was my best in show. And they emailed me. They're like, oh, yeah, thanks for playing the song, of course. But you guys were also saying the name wrong. So I apologize up front to all the bands that I will do just that for.
I'm going to put you on the spot and say their name correctly right now.
I don't have it in front of me, so I don't even remember band name. Help me out.
I don't remember it either. I was trying to make you look like an idiot, and now I look like a fool as well.
Yeah, but anyway, it was a good track, but I'm sorry that I'll mess up your names. But that's why if you look in the notes below or you go to our website at vizaural.music.blog, you'll be able to just get a direct link to all these bands. So you don't even have to remember their names if you hear it. And you're driving your car, or you're just on the train or whatever it is. You don't have to write it down or anything like that, or listen to my poorly pronounced names. Just go to those notes. You can have a direct link to those music.
Yes, to those music. Direct link to those music.
It's. I should say it's not that early. I shouldn't be this verbally impaired. I've already had like 3 cups of coffee. But how about you, Craig? What's been up in your world?
Well, we survived a snowmageddon that was supposed to happen, but we only got like 4 or 5 inches of snow, and now we're getting frozen rain and ice falling, which, as I look outside my window, wreaked havoc on one of my neighbor's super old trees, as half of it has fallen over. So, at least it didn't hit a power line. I still have power, so if this recording suddenly stops, you guys will never know, and we'll just redo this, but... I'll just go into darkness and freeze to death, because tomorrow it's supposed to be about 0 degrees for a high.
God, yeah, I mean, we've had not great weather. I mean, it's just been raining here. It's obviously California, so I'm not experiencing a whole lot of snow or anything, but it has been pretty drizzly. In fact, it's supposed to have no rain this weekend. I was hoping to get out there on my bike and do some things outside, but it's raining right now. So the forecast has not been very accurate.
Yeah, congratulations, weatherman. We were supposed to get up to 2 feet of snow, and that did not happen. I put my 2 feet into the snow earlier to go shovel the driveway, and each shovel of snow weighed about 8,000 pounds because it is just waterlogged. And this is why old people have heart attacks when they shovel snow, because it was a lot harder than it should have been, and I almost died.
Yeah, don't they have kids that like go around and make some money? It seems like if I was a kid in that town, you just make bank. You just walk around, figure out, charge people $10, $20. I imagine most people would pay for it.
Yeah, I need to get a snowblower. I've been saying that now for, this is the 4th winter we've been here, so for 4 winters I've been saying, I need to get a snowblower, and I have yet to. Because it's like, it doesn't snow enough for you to really need one, but it snows too much for you to not have one. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, yeah. It's, what is it? $500 for one of them?
Yeah, I mean, you could go on Craigslist and probably get a pretty decent one that's a couple years old for a couple $100s. And so if you're paying somebody $20-$30 a time to do your driveway, it would pay for itself probably in a winter or 2.
Fascinating. Maybe. Enough of this banal small talk. Let's get to the jams.
So I'm gonna continue the weather talk for now. We've got
that's what people tune in for,
Yeah, isn't this visceral weather?
It is. People love hearing about weather from like 2 weeks ago. By the time they listen to this, even worse.
Oh yeah, there's that too. Who knows what's going to happen in 2 weeks? Maybe I don't know. Just let's get to the first track.
Okay. And again, I apologize for mispronouncing all these, but the very first one is from an Estonian band by the name of Ilu with a track called Jaanus. good track. I really like the kind of Baroque, very soft and slow reverb pop to it. The vocal harmonies, it sounds like it's the same person singing, just doing different layers of the harmony. Really, it was a good way to start the show. So what do you think, Craig?
Yeah, for me, it was one of those. Well, so the style that they're playing is just one of those genres that, when done right, the song is just kind of there, but not in a bad way. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So they do a good job of that. I found myself both paying attention to the music and kind of noticing kind of really interesting things going on, and then at times, a couple of times, I was listening to it where it was just kind of in the background, and you're like, oh yeah, that's fine. It's there. So it was like, for me, it was enjoyable, but also forgettable.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah. I found like it sounds like a lot of Hidden Shoal Records bands. It has, they do a lot of that kind of big, lush pop sound, and I feel like it fits in well with that. I also noted that this is maybe the first track that we have from SoundCloud. We always mention at the beginning of the show, we get tracks from Bandcamp and SoundCloud, but I would say most of my hunting happens at Bandcamp, yours as well, and so I'm not sure, was this sent in to us, or did you find this, or how did we find a SoundCloud track?
I did not find this. Maybe they sent it to us. We're terrible at our jobs, apparently.
Yeah, damn. Well, yeah. We'll take a listen to it. It's a fine little track. It's part of a larger LP, so I recommend taking a listen to it if you like that kind of sound.
Yeah, for me, like, this is going to be a weird analogy, but I do listen to a lot of Spotify playlists where it's like, oh, I like this band, I'm just going to put on a radio station, and just it goes off and plays 15, 20 bands that are all kind of similar and stuff. It's a nice way for that, just to chill and relax, listen to a couple of hours of music without having to figure out what album you want to listen to.
Sure.
And like this band and song is like, it's perfect for those playlists, because every time it would come on, you're like, who's this? And then you're like, oh yeah, it's those guys. I should look them up more. But then you never do. And then eventually their song comes on your podcast, and then you talk about it, and it sounds like you're saying really mean things about it, but I did really enjoy it. Sure.
A little bit of a divergent point here. I didn't realize how desired those Spotify playlists are. Like, I guess, when Spotify will de-platform someone on their own platform, like they still have their music available, but they're not on some of these major playlists. I guess it has a pretty big impact on people's bottom line, which, I guess makes sense, because a lot of people will probably just play those playlists. It's the only time you're going to hear some of that new music, but I was surprised that that's just how it is nowadays.
Yeah, well, that's sad. I mean, we've made, 36, 37 cents with our songs on Spotify?
Yep, so we got to get on one of those playlists. I don't know who I have to bribe to make that happen, but we'll figure that out.
Yeah, if you bribe them with our earnings from Spotify, I'm sure
36 cents.
Yeah. Right, it'll work. Yeah.
Speaking of a band that probably doesn't have to bribe Spotify to play their track, this is from a San Diego band called Inspired and the Sleep. Their track, Right Place, Right Time. I know I found this, and you were a San Diego, I was going to say native, you were a San Diego citizen for some time. Obviously, I love San Diego, and I found this song. It's very, like, a straightforward guitar pop. It actually really reminds me of a lot of San Diego kind of bands in the scene in kind of the early 2000s, mid-2000s, where it's just really pretty and nice. Would have fit well within kind of the indie guitar scene that was happening at the time. Maybe is still happening there. I haven't been to San Diego in a couple of years, but what do you think of this, Craig?
All right, this is going to sound weird, but this kind of feels like a top 40 pop song to me, like sort of Maroon 5-ish.
Okay, yeah.
But really, like, the only Maroon 5 I know of is what's his name, Adam, when he sings like a few random things on The Voice, because my wife watches The Voice. And that's what this feels like to me. It's not an insult, though, because from like a hipster standpoint, I'm pretty sure that's a pretty big selling point. They're like, oh, it's the the hipster Maroon 5 sounding band.
Sure. I mean, we obviously like things that are pretty far off the deep end into experimentation, but this is like a band that could, legitimately become a big band just based on the sound of this track. So,
yeah, totally. I guess like Portugal the Man was one of those bands that was kind of small and then just kind of blew up huge. And I think it helps. Like, yeah, this could be a band that would definitely like, say Apple puts them in a pod or in an iPod video or a commercial, and then everybody loves them. Like it would fit in just like that, but it's also great for, like in a small little music venue too. It's I don't know. There's some genres that work so well in any size crowd, and then
Sure.
I think that's what this kind of comes down to.
Yeah, so check this one out. I like the sound of this. It might not be something I return to all that often, but it was a really nice little gem to find, and glad I was able to share it with you. Let's go and skip along to our next track. This is from an Argentinian band called Ayermaniana with El Calor. I found this one. I'm going to let you start, Craig, because I want to know what you think before you get my opinion.
Now I'm curious to see what you think. I instantly love this. Sometimes straight ahead psych noise pop is just what the doctor ordered. Not many bands are doing guitar solos in their songs anymore, especially ones that are the last like 3 minutes of the song. It was weird because it was like a throwback song, but it was also super fresh, so it had that weird thing to being like really modern but retro at the same time, and I loved it. And I listened to the rest of this album and loved that. And I always hate when you find really good stuff, because
I always find really good stuff. I think our fan will know that.
That's an absolute lie. Angel, write in and tell us who finds better music.
I mean, I like that you had mentioned this as well, and I started to notice a trend. You mentioned this off air that we seem to be finding a lot of Argentinian and Brazilian acts, and I don't know why. I'm not searching those regions on Bandcamp, but gosh, they're producing a lot of music that I really like. I really dug this, and the reason I wanted you to start is because I thought this is something Craig would like, but he's going to dislike it because I found it. But you looked beyond that, so I appreciate that.
Wow, I called your bluff.
You did. I also like that they list on their page that they are the last remnants of Argentinian psychedelic rock, and I'm intrigued by that because I feel like we find a lot of psychedelic stuff from Argentina right now, and so I don't know what they mean by that. Yeah,
I found that band that you hated for some reason. They were a little more metal than this. What was it, Eerie, I think?
Yeah.
They were fantastic. I still go back to their albums because they're so good. I wonder if it's because a lot of the Brazilian and Argentinian bands just have their albums up for free, and like the damned capitalists in America and like the UK are like, oh, we're going to charge you at least $2 to buy this, and we're like, no, we're just going to listen to the really good free music instead.
So it's more selection bias on our part because we're finding tracks that are free to download to talk about the show.
Yeah, and they're
okay.
Yeah, and they're just more up to letting their art speak for itself, and they're not tied down to late capitalism and the gig economy and stuff.
All right, fair enough. And you had to bring in late capitalism into this too. I
was going to say, I've been noticing some of your tweets and stuff, and you're starting to swing back into that old leftist camp, I see.
I mean, I feel like I've always been kind of there, but some of it is...
When you were writing as like the whatever liberal, what a stupid thing where you're like, oh no, I'm a traditional liberal, a conservative centrist. Like, you had those views in like the late 2000s where you should feel shame for those.
I don't feel shame for anything, I say.
No, you should. I mean, you have always loved labor unions. I'll give you that.
Yeah, it's also maybe it's just the current era we live in where it's I don't know. It's hard to look at the world and not see it a certain way. At least, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're starting to become super reactionary, and I like it.
Oh, okay. Well, I forgot what I was going to say. I guess with this band as well, there must be just a scene of people that I bet they have like a bunch of friends or something that were in these kinds of bands, and maybe they're all fading away, and that's what they mean by they're the last remnants of it. I don't know, but it was a good track. I dug it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next track. This is one from a Colorado band called OUTWORLDER with Lazercycle Deathrace. The track name Lazercycle Deathrace, but tell us about this, Greg.
Yeah, so I found these guys. The music, it's rooted in electronica, but it has a lot of different disparate elements. So there's like ambient noise stuff, so like swirling soundscapes in the background, some black metal because, a couple of shakes of that never hurts, the occasional like R&B, like hip-hop production style stuff. And then every once in a while you get some death metal screaming, because when you think of genre mashups, that's what you think of. So, like, I listened to most of this album. All the tracks are a different amalgam of all of those kind of different parts. So, like, if this little snippet of a song intrigued you, I definitely listened to more, because there's some things that fall more on the electronic side, fall more on the metal side, fall more on, the kind of the ambient sound of stuff. So I'm kind of curious to see what you think of this random mishmash of stuff. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's fine.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to a lot of electronic music on Bandcamp recently. I found some really incredible stuff, and maybe because I've been listening to things that are that kind of mashup of different styles and some of that kind of mixed culture just coming to life, this just seemed below that bar, personally.
I don't know. I dug it because it was a different mix-up of those things. Like, it wasn't like, how like it didn't have like that super industrial sound to it. We'll get to another track or another band that definitely hits those industrial elements, but I just liked it because for me it was a new type of weird mashup. I don't think I'll ever listen to this again, but I definitely know that there's clearly a space for this because they made the music. I
don't know if that always means that there's a space for it. I make all kinds of stuff that I don't know if there's actually room in the world for it.
What is it, tautology, where it's like the definition of the thing is its thing, or something like that, where it's a terrible logic to use.
I was going to say that makes no sense to me, but continue.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're recording a little later than normal, so or late morning. So instead of coffee, I've already moved on to some beer.
Wow, still we got to rock on,
It is before noon. I'm not going to lie.
Right. Well, I plan to do the same at some point here. I mean, I have my nieces and some of my family is coming in to go shopping for a quinceañera dress, so I need to medicate myself to deal with all that.
I was going to make a quinceañera joke, but then I'm like, no, there's no way. Turns out that's what it was for.
You had mentioned before, too, because what I was joking about your late capitalism stance. What is it on Twitter with people and centrists? They almost, I don't know, maybe I'm too old to pick up on, is that like the biggest dirty word for Twitter left?
Well, I think it's because there's really no difference between a centrist and most Republicans.
Really? It seems pretty different to me. I don't know. From
an economic standpoint. So a majority of the Democratic Party will like kowtow to Wall Street and those types of lobbyists, where they kind of they think that capitalism will solve the issue when it's capitalism that's causing the issue. So it's hard because like there's clearly, I mean, it's funny because like polling on a lot of leftist views polls very well with the American public, because they're like, yeah, we should have rich people pay more money because they're not earning any money, they're just stealing it from us. Whereas the centrists will be like, no, we can't do that because they tell us that we can't do that. And that's what centrists basically.
Okay, so are they just basically saying like this, I don't know, maybe not the mainstream like Democratic Party, but these are the folks who would say like, well, that won't win elections. So maybe they're living in like 1997 where, well, that might be true in 97, but that might not be true in 2019, that it might actually be what wins elections is, taking some of those bolder stances. Is that what they mean by a centrist?
Yes, exactly.
Because it seems like, just like with neoliberal, when I see that on Twitter, I'm like, most people using this, I don't think they know what this means. It just seems to be the catch-all, like, these are people I don't like.
Yeah, there is a lot of that. Like, so it's weird because they're like, let's take Elizabeth Warren, for example. Like, she has a lot of leftist views, but she's still rooted in rooted in a capitalistic standpoint. Like, I would obviously vote for her, probably not in the primary, but if she gets the nomination, yeah, of course I would. Like, but there's issues with where her views come from, I think, and how far she would go with them, and I think that's a lot. Like, but she's obviously not a traditional centrist. But her,
I guess I find that for the people that I know who would have defined themselves as centrists, they wouldn't say like, oh, as it's often framed on Twitter, is like, oh, it's just someone who would take a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B and find the median. Like, no, that's not exactly right. It's more that maybe they didn't fit the mold for what was traditionally defined as conservative or liberal, and it might be on certain issues they're actually quite radical. So I always find that to be, well, again, it's Twitter. So what?
Yeah, I would say that a majority of centrists are still grounded in the idea that capitalism will be able to dig up from the hole that capitalism got us into.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah. So that's my issue, at least with centrists, is they are basically trying to dig up stupid.
That's very smart. And let's go to another band that almost surely is not centrist. It's a band from Winnipeg. It's actually a submission that was sent in to us. A band called Living Hour with their track Bottom Step. Good luck when it comes to submissions, because this is right up my alley. It just has that kind of sad but pretty melancholy, just really cleanly produced. And just as Phoenician Snares said about Winnipeg, that it's a frozen shithole, the fact that they're living up there but they're still producing something very pretty and beautiful, I dig that. So what do you think?
Yeah, so I thought that you found this and I was really mad because I'm like, he's cheating because it's sad, sappy music with haunting female vocals, and that's an automatic like from this guy. But knowing that's a listener submission makes it even better, because now I don't have to give you credit for shit.
Hey, that just means that, we have good bands who, are sending stuff in. And I know that they just put out a vinyl record. It looks really beautiful as well. I don't have a copy, but I'm looking at the picture here. And so definitely something you can pick up as a physical as well.
Wow, I feel like you're kind of angling for a free album from them.
I'll always take it for you. But, now that we've already, sold their music to the world, that's not necessary. Especially, I know, when you're putting together 200, 300 vinyl copies, those are pretty pricey, that you're not really just like, hey, here, have a copy for free. It's easy with cassettes or CDs because they're so dang cheap. But no need for that. But I would buy it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love this, and it's funny because it's like it's a genre where like they're not like pushing boundaries or borders really. There's horns, so that's slightly new.
That always gets a point. I feel like I should just make that like the name of the show, like horns gets a point, because anytime you put it in, it's great.
That's because you're so. I'm not
awesome.
I'm not. No, I was going to say horny, but that's just it's a terrible joke.
Damn, we are way different when we're recording a few hours later.
I
feel
know.
like,
let's
these
go
jokes
back
are funny.
Let's just go back to recording at like 9 in the morning. No, I love this, and everything about it was fantastic, and I like it even more because you did not find this.
Fair enough. Well, let's take a look at the next track. I know that this is one that you found, Craig, from British Columbia, a band called Robouroboros with their track Hyperspace and Other Dimensions. Vowels in that name, but I think I actually said that one mostly correct. But what do you think of this, Greg?
Yeah, so I was listening to a different band when I was clicking through stuff, and they had the tag space metal underneath. They tagged themselves, and while the band that I was listening to was terrible, that tag intrigued me enough to click on it to find out what other bands consider themselves space metal.
Oh, you know what? That makes so much sense now, that a lot of these tracks, because I looked at the tags as well, there was all these metal things listed. I thought, what the hell? Like, none of this sounds like metal to me, but now I see how you were stumbling upon this.
Because so I found this and a couple other bands. I think the Outlander was another one that might have been in the space metal loop that I got sucked down. But yeah, like I liked it. This is kind of like a remix of some stuff where it's a little different than some of their other releases, but I just like the super industrial sci-fi voiceover stuff. Like you said, I don't really hear the metal in it, but I definitely hear the space in it.
Fair enough. I thought it was all right. It was not bad. I mean, I listened to it. I enjoyed it. I felt like it was by the numbers. And again, like, because I feel like I've been listening to things like, or not necessarily like this, but this kind of mashup of, electronics and things like that. I've been listening to a lot of that this last 2 weeks. It just wasn't quite up to par for what I've been listening to on other places, but it's good. It's solid. It's, if this is an early release from this group or this band or learning how to do all this, then they should be proud of it.
Yeah, like I said, the other stuff, it's kind of like the Outlander thing where some of the songs lean a little more one way or the other. So to me, I like the bands that do these mashups where not every song sounds the same, and I think that is a lot of electronic acts end up where they kind of have the same feel from track to track, and it's just like, all right, you could have just made this a 60-minute long song instead of breaking it into 10 tracks. So I do like that they make a conscious effort to make the songs sound distinct.
Okay, that's fair point.
Yeah, I do think a lot of electronic acts don't, and I think that hinders a lot of electronic acts.
I feel, especially because the tools are now available where anyone can get down and get some soft synths on their computer or get some loops, that it really has opened up that field for just lots and lots of experimentation. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff, and I'm always disappointed if I don't feel that they took it far enough. Like, we probably don't need another safe electronic act. We can just really mess with it. Although we've also had some of those acts on the show, and we're not always too big on them. I remember the band from, what was it, last week, was it? With the Argentinian band with the Elmo on the cover? Or is this the guy making sounds and kind of cutting them all together?
Oh, was that the one that you found?
Yeah, that was
just
the one I
making
found.
all the sounds with his mouth or whatever? Like, it was all like a cappella, but didn't sound like it?
Sure. I mean, I feel like that's where that's great if people say, I'm going to do something really out there. But, it wasn't a record we said we'd probably return to all that often. But,
Yeah, sometimes you have to applaud somebody for trying, but not applaud what is made.
Sure. I think that's fair too. And, so keep it up, and let's see what these folks come up with next time. Let's go ahead and go listen to our next track. This is from a San Francisco band called the Sad Bastard Book Club with their track called Untitled 2. So it's a little unfair in that I do like this song a lot. It's the kind of music I know, Craig, you also like, this kind of like, orchestral, dirgy post-rock. But we also know this band. We recorded a record with Justin, who's the frontman for Sad Bastard Book Club. I really just dug this. I think it's an excellent 4-track EP. There's some... it's well recorded. It sounds great. There's some great movements within it, some great instrumentation. They put out a number of EPs already and records before, but this is some of their better stuff. They seem like they put out like a record a year, and then I see that they play a couple shows, somewhere around the Bay Area. So it's not just like a recording act. This is something that goes out and they try to bring it to the people. What'd you think?
I kind of dug it. I didn't know if I would at first. For me, it was a borderline bit too repetitive, which someone who listens to a bunch of drone is a little weird to say. But I know I've talked about this before, where a lot of these songs with the faster riffs, they become a little stale the more that they repeat them, just because it just kind of hits you over the head with it. Whereas like a slow dirge that kind of plods on, I can at least listen to hours of like the same 4 notes if it's done slow enough. Yeah, like you were saying, the movements in the song were good. This really was like one of my it genres like 15 years ago when we were both in Santa Cruz. Yeah, I did really dig it, but there's a little bit of stuff to it where I would have liked it to be. It's dumb to say, but like I have like the platonic view of this genre in my head because I've heard so many different bands do it that like this wasn't it, because no one can attain the platonic form of anything, because Plato's forms are perfect, and nothing is perfect. To just get out on another metaphysics tangent.
That no one will understand that, but okay. That's
everybody understands Plato's forms.
Do they?
Universal forms, don't they?
Maybe all your centrist friends, Craig, but I don't think the normal person would.
I do not have centrist friends.
I don't know. I think you might now be a centrist because you're in the center of your life.
Okay. Sure.
I'm just trying to redefine these terms to meet our cool hip audience that I know is listening, that wants to hear us drop these things like late capitalism and centrist.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they sure. No, I did not know that we knew somebody in this band, so that's cool to hear. But yeah, it was super tight. I liked it. Like I said, quirkier transitions between the bits, and maybe a little less of the repeating of the phrasings would be better for me, but I still really dug it quite a bit.
Fair enough. And yeah, it's a free download as well, so it'd be easy to check out. I recommend, checking out all the tracks on here, because there's some different types of stuff if maybe this one didn't gel exactly as you would have liked. And let's go ahead and move on to our last track of the show. It's from a Brazilian act called Esmectatons.
Keep going. Yep, no, keep going.
Help me with this one. I can't deal with it. The Afrobroccoli Species-Agaccidom.
You nailed the song title too.
Okay, great. Here it is. You know what I need to do? I need to get just my computer to phonetically read all of these. I'm sure it will still be wrong.
It'd be even worse, probably, if you just type it in and it's like, Esmectatons.
Well, I put this one last. I really like this song. I've been mentioning in some of our conversation with these earlier tracks that I've been listening to a lot of electronic music recently, and one of the record labels I found was this Hong Kong label called Neon City Records, and I guess they're quite big because they put out maybe like one cassette a month, and it's always these kind of new funk or electro funk, vaporwave kind of stuff from around the world, and they sell out super fast. And apparently they're really in demand, because I went on Discogs just thinking, okay, well maybe I'll find some of these old cassettes and pick them up, and they're going for like $60-$70. So there's apparently a big market for this kind of that type of funk. And while this band doesn't fit perfectly within that, in fact, this is a little too out there for that label. I got a sense that like, oh, this is dealing with trying to make funk music, but it's not gonna, or funk or dance, but it's not exactly within that realm. It feels kind of like, what would Frank Zappa do if he wanted to make a funk record, or, that kind of sound? So I really dug this track. I also like that they put as one of their tags, technical death metal. And I thought, okay, that I don't think so, but I like that you guys tagged it that way.
Oh, yeah. So it's another, like we were saying before, Argentina, Brazil. This is a Brazilian band. Best place to find new music, apparently, those two countries these days. Like you were saying, if you kind of ever wondered what free jazz and funk sounded like when fronted by a death metal singer, just smash that follow button on these guys.
And I should
that's
note,
what it is.
Yeah, and I should note, like, I listened to a couple tracks on this record. If I really like a track, I'm like, I want to hear the rest of it, especially something like this where it is kind of out there. I think, is every song going to be like them trying a different style or whatever? And there is some different types of sounds within it. Some of them are actually a bit more straightforward in its kind of danciness or funk, that element. And this track was a little bit further out there. But in all of them, you see that there's some experimentation going on, which I really dug.
Yeah, I definitely chose the track because it does have the best mix of what they bring. Because like you were saying with the funk stuff, I think it was like, it might be the first track where it just starts off like super like, just funky as hell bass line, and it kind of keeps that driving the entire time. It doesn't get as weird as this, and then there's other songs where you really do feel the metal. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's kind of funny because, like, you throw this band in Brooklyn, send their cassette or CD into Pitchfork, and you'd get at least a 9.5 from them, and they'd be proclaimed geniuses. I guarantee it. They're
Why is
so
it
good.
that I know Tiny Mixtapes does a good job of pulling from some deep cuts from Bandcamp and things? Like, people could send in cassettes, like they have whole sections for that. Why doesn't Pitchfork do that? I imagine there's got to be dozens of people who would write for them for free, and just for the exposure. And it seems like it's such a or maybe it's just because it is such an important website in setting the tastes of the hipster music community. They don't do it that way, or they don't dig that deep, or do they? And I'm just missing out on that website.
I think Pitchfork basically has become Rolling Stone.
They really have. I mean, even like the major releases where...
Yeah, they are covering the major labels now because, oh my God, I'm going to say the dumbest, worst sentence.
Yes, you centrist dad.
Exactly. But, back when I first started reading Pitchfork, they would never, review an album from, Capitol Records or, those types of... or anything that would ever be on Top 40 radio.
Definitely not. In fact, I remember it was kind of a big thing when they just started to review rap or hip hop records. Oh, and people were kind of like, "What? What is this? I can't believe it! A Pitchfork."
All the white hipsters hated it. It's like, how dare you give this album an 8.5? It's, oh God! And then they'd be like, all just veiled racist shit about why they would even put that on there. Yeah, it was.
When was that? Awful. That must have been 2004. So it was kind of before the Twitter era of.
Yeah, it was before Twitter.
Okay,
definitely. But no, I think right now they've just gotten so big that I don't think they could, quote unquote, waste their bandwidth on something like this. But
that's fair enough.
But they could totally make this band huge. And it's one of those annoying things where they kind of should be. But no, that's one of the reasons why I still love Tiny Mixtapes, because their whole Eureka section where it's every once in a while they'll have oh, this is an album of a guy that was just throwing clay pots at his microphone for 3 hours. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, heck, they've said nice things about our band, and no one listens to us.
No, that's true. They really did. That was weird.
That was a good day. Yeah, I noticed too. I've been reading about R. Kelly because obviously he's been kind of in the news. There's that documentary that's out, and I went on to Pitchfork and thought I wonder if Pitchfork reviewed those records. And yeah, they've reviewed a lot of them. In fact, they reviewed one recently and gave it a pretty good score. And I wondered, I mean, by the point that they reviewed that most recent record, people kind of knew that R. Kelly was R. Kelly. It wasn't wasn't.
Okay, I have major issues with this R. Kelly thing because...
Okay, why is that?
Dave Chappelle, the Chappelle Show, the tape of him pissing on an underage girl came out when Dave Chappelle had a TV show on Comedy Central, and he made a skit about it jokingly.
Oh, did he?
It's we've known, people have known that he's been doing this stuff for a decade and a half, and it's insane. And now finally, it's come back. Come back. It's always been there. There's been a push to, mute R. Kelly for years.
Sure. I guess really, maybe because
it's just so annoying.
The same with Michael Jackson or some of these other celebrities where they were never convicted of a crime. I mean, obviously they showed they paid off people. There was plenty of evidence.
There was a goddamn tape.
Yeah, but in a court of law, he was found not guilty. So I guess that was able to, to say, I guess he can't be. We shouldn't treat him any different because the court of law said he, at least technically, was not guilty. I don't know. I don't know enough about the case.
I think what happened is they looked at the bottom line. Is oh shit, he's still making money. Yeah, he's fine.
So it's almost like if you make money, we'll overlook all kinds of, and not even make money. I think there is a weird attachment we get to, artists, musicians. It's easy for me to be oh yeah, R. Kelly, you suck because I've never really been a fan of his music. I have no affinity for it, but if you've invested in that person and you feel like you have some great moments in your life where that was a soundtrack, I understand where you're just I don't want to have that tainted by the reality of this person and their terrible deeds. But my point about Pitchfork, the reason I brought that up is, does Pitchfork scrub those, or do you... I mean, I feel like you shouldn't. I think you should just say, yeah, I mean, we were reviewing the record and, maybe in the future we won't review anything from this artist, but, we're not going to, delete those from the website. But I don't know what your thoughts are.
Pitchfork is well known from going back and reviewing albums that they gave low scores to that people love and on second listen... This was fantastic,
and I appreciate that. But I guess
it's also
would it be fair
because,
to? I mean, wouldn't it be fair to say we're going to review it again based on the fact that he's a bad person? Would that affect the listen of the music?
I mean, I would just remove the reviews from the album. Just just remove them. Like, you don't have to re-review them. Like, oh, he gets a 0 now because,
Oh, so you would just delete them from the website? Like, we're not going to have these up anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like, and it's annoying that, like I said, artists that have, like, done stuff with them are now, like, removing those tracks from, like, Spotify or whatever. It's like, that's cool, but why didn't you do that, like when you knew that people knew that the documentary was coming out for, like, a year or two. There's a huge push for multiple years to do this, and now it's like, oh, okay, well, now that public opinion is finally changing, now it's time to act. Like, that's
of course
bullshit.
It is. I think it's lame. In fact, I actually don't think those musicians should. I think there was like Shania Twain or someone just removed a song from Spotify.
It was like Celine Dion.
Oh, Celine Dion.
Did, and Lady Gaga, I think, might be, and somebody else kept it up, but they're like, yeah, we don't like him anymore, but they still kept the song up.
Right. I guess that's a little different. I'm fine with them saying I'm going to take it down because that person could still make money off it, but I don't feel the need, like, at least maybe those big pop stars are different, but like random people who work on like a Woody Allen movie or, I feel like for the most part, you're just getting a gig. You're not necessarily having to endorse that person and their lifestyle, but I guess I understand the taking of the song down if you're trying to get money out of their pockets. I would say,
like, if like you're a Grip or a Best Boy or something like that, yeah, you're just getting thrown onto movies willy-nilly by the studio. If you're an actor and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go star in a Woody Allen movie in 2010, you should just read the fucking room.
I guess. Although if you're not a big name, I can still understand where you're like,
no, there's
this
been
might be my
huge
break.
names that have been in Woody Allen movies in the last like 15 plus years where he's been. He's been a shitty person for a long, long time.
Oh yeah, that's true.
He's been making shitty movies for an even longer time.
Yeah, I'm not going to give shade to Emma Stone or whatever, those people who are, or I can't remember all the other names. He's had a lot of big people in him, but I think like an up-and-comer, whether it's in music or in film or in art, I don't know. I feel like that puts too much, like every person I work with has to be some kind of good individual. And I don't know if I feel that should be the calculus of someone involved in this stuff.
Well, I think it's different if like you're in a project and you do a project and then it comes out that this person is terrible and you legit didn't know.
Sure.
But like, let's say Harvey Weinstein starts up a movie studio again. I guarantee people, actors and actresses would be like, yeah, I'll be in a Harvey Weinstein movie.
You think people would?
100%.
I mean, someone who is new to the scene, maybe like they're like, look, I need a gig. I'm busting tables or whatever. I guess they would. And
no, I guarantee big name actors and actresses.
Really?
Because there's still people that are defending them because it didn't happen to them.
Shit.
It's like.
I mean, it's one thing to say I'll work with someone even if they're bad, but to defend them seems like a pretty crazy thing to do at this point.
Well, look at what like all the aged out comedians are doing. Like defending like Louis C.K. or saying like, oh, comedy is supposed to be racist and offensive. I'm like, no, comedy's supposed to be funny, you dumb fucks. Yeah. Like if you can't tell a joke without a slur, maybe it's good that nobody wants to laugh at you anymore.
I wonder what was going to happen now that, because obviously looking at like someone like R. Kelly or any of these current musicians and the way they've treated women or treated people. I mean, if we go back to the 1960s, to the era of like the rock band, I guarantee none of those rock bands are going to survive scrutiny. Like Led Zeppelin, it's not even like a secret. It's the kind of things that they were up to when it comes to, their fans. And I just wonder if we're going to have to reflect on those bands, and if it's true that we say, the acts that you commit as an individual are going to disqualify your art, or we really should not include that in the public sphere, what we're going to do about some of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question for art that was made like especially when the artist is already gone, or no longer doing anything. It's that is a tough question. I'm not going to be able to solve that on a dumb podcast list.
At the very end of the show?
No. it is. I mean, it's a hard thing to say. Like, if some of my favorite artists that I listen to like come out and as horrible, shitty people, I honestly would have no problem being like, I'm never going to listen to them again. Like I used to. This is like I'm a wrestling fan. It's a dark secret.
Well, it's not that much of a secret. You post about it every 2 seconds on Twitter.
Oh yeah, but like so when WWE the first time they went to Saudi Arabia, I'm like, ooh, God, that's not very good. That's kind of shitty. But then the second time they went back after the Khashoggi stuff, especially when Saudi Arabia was like, yeah, we killed him. And they're like,
what are you going to do about it, asshole?
I don't think they did. And then they still went, and some of the acts are like, no, we're not going. And they held it anyway. I dropped my subscription to WWE, and I just now pirate all their stuff.
There you go.
I still watch it, but I don't like support them monthly because of it. And it's and it's hard because like that's an ownership thing where the owner of the company is so terrible, but obviously most wrestlers
and that's where I don't actually
politics.
fault those wrestlers, because I know that those wrestling contracts are utter shit, and they basically get very little. I mean, they're lucky if they're able to, trampoline to another industry, and they are in these lockdown contracts. So I'm sure they had no say over any of that. Like, even if they put up a stink, like, I don't think that's a good idea. They definitely would be forced
basically
to do it.
the two people that were able to say I'm not going were like the two of the biggest names in the company, and then in WWE's infinite wisdom, they're like, well, this is already super controversial, so let's bring back Hulk Hogan. Super racist Hulk Hogan, and have him MC the entire event.
That's some great PR.
Oh yeah, and then the weird thing is, like, during the show, they never once said that it was in Saudi Arabia. Like the first show that they did, they had like a 10-minute commercial about how great Saudi Arabia was in the middle of the thing.
Yeah,
like it was this
dirty.
huge, But I mean, they're making $500 million for over the next 10 years doing these shows with them. So obviously they're weighing that metric where it's like, well, how much money will we lose versus how much we're going to keep by staying in Saudi Arabia.
It's as you say, Craig. It's late capitalism.
Yeah.
Well, Centrist Dad Craig, tell us, what track is your best in show?
Living Hour, easy, 100%.
Wow,
so good.
I'm going to have to say Living Hour as well, although there were some other really nice tracks. The Sad Bastard Book Club, the track we just listened to from Brazil, I'm not going to try to pronounce again.
Ayermaniana was fantastic. I actually listened to that entire album before we started recording. It's so good.
Awesome.
But yeah, Living Hour I know is something that I will listen to on end, just like that Zoe album, ZZO, that I still listen to at least once every couple of days, because it's still so good.
So we've had some centrist consensus here that, congratulations, Living Hour, bottom step, best track and show. Until next time, guys.
Peace.